Hey Melissa, my name is Jordan Pearson. I'm a CPA in Calgary. My wife is a registered massage therapist and she's pretty active on a lot of Facebook groups. And she was telling me that you had a question about how to record GST when buying assets, and specifically how to record those transactions in Wave. And then you also had a question about whether or not you could claim that GST. So one of the things that I've been doing over the last couple months is hosting webinars for RMTs where I teach them accounting and income tax concepts, and I actually show them how to set up their businesses in Wave and how to manage things on their own. And so you may be wondering why I'm doing this for free, and I don't really know. I think it comes down to the fact that with everything that's going on in the world right now, I'm just always looking for opportunities, different ways that I can help people out in small ways, and so I'm happy to put together a tutorial for you. And so I hope that this is beneficial. Hopefully it answers your question. Hopefully it's helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to my wife, Melissa. So what you'll need to do, I set up this dummy account. This is what I use when I host my webinars. But the first thing you'll want to do when you log into your Wave account is go to Settings here on the left-hand side and then select Sales Taxes. I'm sure you've already done this, but I just want to go through each step so you know exactly how everything should be done. So you'll need to set up GST as a sales tax in Wave. If you haven't done that already, you'll click on this button here, Create a Sales Tax, and then you'll enter the name of the tax, which is obviously Goods and Services Tax. The abbreviation is GST. You can put in your tax number, and then you'll need to make sure that this is checked off, so this tax is recoverable. So any GST that you pay on certain transactions for your business is a recoverable tax, and so meaning you can claim that back from the government when you file your GST return. So you'll want to make sure that this is checked off. And then the tax rate obviously for GST is 5%, so you'll enter that there. So after entering that sales tax, what you'll need to do is go up to Accounting and then Chart of Accounts. Now, this was a leasehold improvement, so the first thing that you're going to need to do is under your Assets section, under Property, Plant, and Equipment, you'll want to add a new account, and the name of that account should be Leasehold Improvements. Okay, so select Save. And then hop over to the Expenses section, scroll down and select Add a New Account. And the name of this account is going to be Clearing. Now this will make sense in just a second, so we'll talk about that in just a minute here. So enter that there and hit Save. And then what you'll want to do is come over to Purchases and then Receipts, and then select Upload your first receipt. So what I've done is I've just created a dummy contractor invoice, so we'll select this one here. And then the status is going to initially show up as processing. It'll take a couple minutes for it to actually process it. When it does, it'll then change the status to ready. So you'll just have to, it can sometimes take a long time, so just wait a second for the status to change. Okay, so sometimes it helps, I don't know if it speeds it up or how it works, but clicking between some of these tabs will help it to, for the status to change. So anyways, so once the status changes to ready, you'll click on this transaction here, and then you'll need to update some information. So the merchant name, this is just going to be the name of the business or the contractor or whoever you hired to do these leasehold improvements for you. And then when you come down to category, select a category. What's interesting about Wave is that none of your asset accounts are going to show up here. So you'll see here the leasehold improvements account that we created doesn't show up at all. It only lists your expense accounts, which is really annoying because sometimes you have transactions that need to be recorded directly to an asset account. And so what you'll do is select the clearing account that we created, and then the payment account, this is just going to be how you paid for this transaction. So we'll just say that we paid for this transaction using a credit card. Now the subtotal for this dummy receipt that I created, I said it was $10,000 for leasehold improvements, and then the GST on that is obviously $500. So we'll come back here, the subtotal will be the $10,000, and then the total is obviously $10,500, so including the GST. And then when you click on this button here, the $500 GST will be carved out automatically. So from here, you click Post to Accounting. And then when you go over to Accounting on the left-hand side here and then click on Transactions, you'll see here that that entry has been recorded. So one of the things you can do, so we'll click on this transaction. From here, we can now change the category to the asset account that we want it to be. So we'll scroll down here to the Assets section and then select Leasehold Improvements and then select Save. So the reason why it's important for you to do it this way, why it's important for you to record the receipt and then to post the transaction that way, is because now the receipt is attached to this transaction. So if you click on this here, it'll pull up a copy of the invoice. If you didn't do that, like let's say you just went up here and said record add expense, like you could do that. You could enter in all of the same information, but there's no way for you to attach a receipt or a copy of an invoice to this transaction here, which is kind of annoying, but I mean, you get what you pay for with Wave. It is a free service, and so there are some little things that are kind of annoying, but that works totally fine this way. So now we have this transaction, and so what's interesting though is I'll just hop back over to this receipts section. So we've changed it to Leasehold Improvements, but over here the category is going to stay as clearing. That's totally fine. As long as in your accounting records it shows up, like the category shows up as the appropriate account, that's all that we care about. Right here it's recorded as Leasehold Improvements. That's what we want. Now when you go over to the report section and run your balance sheet, you can see here now under the Assets section we have that Leasehold Improvements with the $10,000. Okay, so that's what we want. Now on the flip side, where's the GST? So if you go to the report section and then click on sales tax, if you click this right here under sales and purchases, and then scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that transaction there, and then the $500 GST that you've paid for these leasehold improvements. And so the other question that you had was whether or not you could claim this. And now I'm assuming when you ask that question, can you claim this? I'm assuming you're referring to claiming it as an input tax credit on your GST return. And the answer to that question is yes. So as long as these leasehold improvements pertain to at least 90% of your business, like if they're used 90% for business purposes, which I'm assuming they're used 100% for business purposes, because I'm assuming you've renovated your clinic or done something, and so this is 100% a business expense, and so you can claim that $500 as an input tax credit, and you can claim the whole amount in the year that you incurred that expense. So even though it is a capital asset and you're going to amortize the value of that asset over time, when it comes to filing your GST return, the full $500 GST that you've paid can be claimed as an input tax credit in this tax year. So hopefully that answers your question, Melissa. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me or to contact my wife, and I'll be happy to help you out in any way that I can. Okay, so I'll leave it there.